Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev are on a collision course once again, with their highly anticipated rematch headlining UFC 320 on October 4 in Las Vegas. The bout comes just months after Ankalaev shocked many by dethroning Powhatan in their first meeting at UFC 13. That night in March, Ankalaev got exactly what he had been chasing for years, a crack at Pereira. Long viewed as one of the toughest puzzles at light heavyweight, Pereira entered the cage as champion with knockout wins over some of the division's elite. Ankalaev, however, flipped the script. Even though he couldn't consistently bring Pereira to the canvas, a strategy many believed would be his path to victory, he didn't need to. Instead, the Russian outstruck the Brazilian over 5 disciplined rounds, walking away with a unanimous decision and the UFC light heavyweight crown. The result ended Pereira's unbeaten run at 205 pounds and set the stage for an immediate rematch. A win for the Brazilian would not only reclaim his title, but also tie their rivalry at 1 win apiece. From there, most would expect a rubber match, but Pereira isn't eager to commit. "I think the story will be over," he told MMA Junkie in Portuguese through Steak. "It's obviously out of my control. It's up to the UFC. If they want to do it again, I'll fight anyone. To be honest, from everything we've seen, I think with him losing, I don't think he's gonna fight for the title anymore." Those comments stirred debate among fans online. Some echoed Pereira's sentiment, arguing that Ankalaev lacks the star power to command another title shot if he loses in October. If Alex goes out there and flatlines him, Ankalaev probably gets pushed really far back down the ladder, one fan posted on X.
Dana White is promising that UFC White House will be unlike anything the sport has ever seen, though it won't look like a traditional fight night. While promoting Canelo vs. Crawford on the Herd, the UFC CEO revealed new details about his recent meetings with President Donald Trump and explained just how unique the atmosphere will be when the historic card finally unfolds on the White House lawn. White said he and his team recently presented renderings of the setup to Trump, who gave his approval on the concept. That, according to White, was the green light to start building the event in earnest. "We laid out all the renderings, and we started to get him to sign off on what he likes and doesn't like, and he loved it," White explained. "So yeah, now we're diving in head first. Now all the work starts." As one would expect, security is at the heart of the planning. White described standing on the White House roof and seeing snipers armed with .50 caliber rifles, pointing out that the Secret Service's job to protect the president will shape how the fight card is staged. Unlike a packed arena or stadium, this show will be extremely limited in live attendance. "The security is going to be a massive issue," White admitted. "At the end of the day, Secret Service's job is to protect the president, and I don't know how it's going to work out as far as having people there live on the lawn of the White House. It'll be under 5,000 though." That makes UFC White House one of the most exclusive tickets in combat sports history. Alice Pereira has officially etched her name into UFC history by becoming the youngest female fighter ever to compete in the promotion. At just 19 years, 8 months, and 24 days old, the Brazilian bantamweight, nicknamed Golden Girl, surpassed the previous record held by South Korea's Chan Mi-jeon, who debuted at 19 years, 9 months, and 13 days back in 2017. This milestone marks a remarkable achievement not only for Pereira, but also for the growth of women's MMA worldwide. Pereira's journey to the UFC began in Feira de Santana, Bahia, Brazil, where she was born on December 20, 2005. Her ascent has been meteoric. She made her professional MMA debut at just 17 years old in August 2023, submitting Raquel de Andrade with a first-round rear-naked choke. Over the next 17 months, Pereira compiled an undefeated 6-0 record, showcasing a finishing touch that has quickly become her trademark. Her victories include 4 knockouts and 1 submission, with several finishes coming in under 20 seconds, generating significant buzz among MMA fans and insiders alike. Leading up to her UFC debut, Pereira spoke candidly about her ambitions. "From the start, my goal was to make UFC history as the youngest female fighter," she explained in recent interviews. "I aimed to do it by the age of 18. While it happened 4 days later, it's amazing to see my prediction come true. Achieving this feels incredible, and it motivates me to keep pushing forward." Her words reflect the focus and maturity that have underpinned her rapid rise through the ranks despite her youth. The defining moment in Pereira's career came on December 14, 2024.
Kelvin Gastelum's UFC career may now be teetering on the edge after an alarming weigh-in for Noche UFC, marking the 5th time he has missed weight under the UFC banner. In what is easily the highest weigh-in of his career, Gastelum stepped on the scales at 191 pounds, 5 pounds over the middleweight non-title limit of 186 pounds. While weight misses are never taken lightly in MMA, this one carries extra weight, literally and figuratively, because it pushes him into territory more commonly associated with light heavyweights, raising serious questions about his future in the promotion. Gastelum has a history of struggling to make weight. His early UFC career at welterweight, 170 pounds, included 3 weight misses from 2014 to 2016, which eventually forced him to move up to middleweight. At middleweight, he found success, even challenging for the UFC Middleweight Championship, but the recurring weight issues have continued to plague him. After losses to Israel Adesanya and others, Gastelum briefly attempted to drop back down to welterweight to pursue another title run. That plan was thwarted last year when he missed weight for a bout against Daniel Rodriguez, forcing him back up to middleweight for his fight with Joe Pyfer at UFC 316. For Saturday's bout against Dustin Stoltzfus, the ramifications of his weight miss are immediate. Gastelum has been fined 35% of his purse, a steep financial penalty reflecting both the severity of the miss and UFC protocol. While the fight is reportedly still set to proceed, the situation has generated widespread criticism from fans and the MMA community alike, many of whom believe the fighter has repeatedly crossed the line and should be removed from the roster. Social media has been rife with calls for Dana White to cut Gastelum, citing both his repeated weight issues and concerns about professionalism. The circumstances surrounding this weigh-in are also notable for Gastelum's behavior on the scales. He reportedly arrived just before the 2-hour weigh-in window closed and opted not to strip down, confidently flexing for the cameras throughout the process. This has been interpreted by some as defiance or The UFC continues to refresh its roster as new talent enters the promotion through Dana White's Contender Series, while several veterans find themselves on the outside looking in. This week, 5 fighters earned contracts from the Contender Series, including one who lost his bout, bringing the total number of signees from the latest season to 21. With a fresh wave of prospects joining the organization, roster turnover was inevitable, and 4 names have now been removed. According to Tom Feely, Austin Hubbard, Mahasha Tay, Marina Moros, and Preston Parsons have all been taken off the UFC roster. Each fighter was coming off consecutive losses, with both Hubbard and Moros dropping 3 straight. At this point, it's unclear whether these fighters were formally released or simply not offered new deals once their contracts expired. For Moros, there may be more nuance. The 13-fight UFC veteran is currently serving a suspension for the banned substance meldonium, which runs until July 17, 2026. It's possible her removal is tied to the suspension rather than a permanent cut, leaving the door open. Jon Silva is stepping into the biggest moment of his career this Saturday at UFC Fight Night Lopez vs. Silva, Noche UFC 3, and if you ask him, the outcome is already decided. The number 10 ranked featherweight will face Diego Lopes, the second-ranked contender fresh off a title fight against Alexander Volkanovski. It's a massive leap in competition for Silva, but he insists his self-belief has been years in the making. The Brazilian has been on a tear, finishing his last 5 opponents, 4 by knockout or TKO and 1 by submission.
His latest victory came against grappling specialist Bryce Mitchell, whom Silva stunned with a ninja choke, collecting yet another performance bonus. That streak of violence, along with his growing fan support, convinced the UFC to fast-track him into the division's elite. While some fighters might feel the pressure, Silva claims his confidence is unshakable. In a conversation with MMA Junkie, he downplayed any impact from his teammates' recent struggles. Training alongside fighting nerds, he saw Mauricio Ruffi and Caio Barallo suffer setbacks just weeks ago, but Silva says that has no bearing on his mindset. "It doesn't change the fact that I'm going to knock Diego out," he stated bluntly. Artem Lobov has recently opened up about an ongoing financial dispute with Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship BKFC, claiming that he is still owed money for one of his most high-profile fights in the promotion. The former UFC fighter, who spent years as a training partner of Conor McGregor and carved out a niche as a scrappy, fearless competitor, made these remarks during a candid interview with Jordan Ellis of Bloody Elbow. While Lobov is confident that BKFC owes him a share of the revenue from the fight, he acknowledges that the exact amount remains uncertain due to discrepancies in reported pay-per-view numbers. Lobov's situation stems from his bout against former boxing champion Paulie Malignaggia at BKF 6 in June 2019, a fight widely regarded as one of the early defining moments in the promotion's history. That bout, contested under the gloveless boxing rules that BKFC is known for, drew significant attention from both the combat sports community and mainstream media. While BKFC initially reported that the fight generated 200,000 pay-per-view buys, there has been ongoing debate over the accuracy of those numbers. David Feldman, CEO of BKFC, has disputed the figure at various points, creating ambiguity over the exact revenue generated and, by extension, the amount owed to Lobov. In his interview, Lobov addressed this head-on. "I don't understand what he was denying because he knows he owes money. He's denying that, oh, it wasn't 200,000 pay-per-views sold, but this is simply what he announced. You know, he announced and somebody actually pulled up an article there under the tweet of Ariel Helwani and Feldman talking about this. Someone pulled up an article where David Feldman announced 200,000 pay-per-views sold. Like, he's never provided me with the real numbers, so I can only go off by what he reported to the media, you know, worldwide. So that's where I got this number. Now, fair enough, if he's saying it was around 100,000 pay-per-views sold, okay, no problem. In that case, he owed me about $75,000, you know." While Lobov acknowledges that the exact sum might fluctuate depending on the verified pay-per-view figures, he is adamant that BKFC still owes him his contractual share. This ongoing dispute, however, hasn't deterred him from pursuing a return to competitive combat sports, as he prepares for his official debut in the Professional Fighters League (PFL) against longtime rival Zubaira Tukhugov at PFL Champions Series 2 on October 3rd. Robert Whittaker nearly added a unique chapter to his storied career when he came close to facing professional wrestler Joe Hendry at the 2018 Commonwealth Games. While Whittaker is best known for his achievements inside the UFC octagon, where he became middleweight champion and remains one of the division's most respected veterans, his athletic background stretches far beyond mixed martial arts. Over the years, Whittaker has dabbled in different combat sports. He once sparred with world boxing champion Jai Opetaia, and he also showed his grappling pedigree by qualifying for the Commonwealth Games in freestyle wrestling at 97 kilograms. That's where the paths of the Reaper and Hendry briefly intersected. Hendry, a decorated professional wrestler who also competed at a high level in amateur wrestling, saw Whittaker's name appear in his weight class for the games. Never one to back down from the spotlight, he issued a challenge on BBC Radio Scotland. "What kind of athlete would I be if I didn't call out the top guy? So I, Joe Hendry, am calling out UFC champion Robert Whittaker. Commonwealth Games. I know there's procedures, but let's see if we can make one exception and make this match." The idea of a crossover showdown intrigued fans, but it never materialized.
Whittaker explained later that the UFC strongly advised against him competing. At the time, he was reigning as middleweight champion, and the promotion made it clear that an injury in a non-MMA competition could cost him dearly. "The UFC wasn't too happy with my competing in the Commonwealth Games," Whittaker told MMA Fighting. "I was told I would have been stripped of the title if I had gotten injured." Angela Hill is set to make her return to the octagon at Madison Square Garden later this year, as she continues to build on her legacy as one of the most active and enduring fighters in UFC strawweight history. The 40-year-old veteran will compete at UFC 322 on November 15th, facing rising prospect Fatima Kline in what looks like a classic clash of experience versus youth. Hill, who holds the record for both most wins and most appearances at 115 pounds, will look to extend those marks as she gears up for her 28th fight in the division. Already the all-time leader in strawweight victories with 12, Overkill has carved out a reputation for toughness and consistency even as the division has evolved around her. This fight comes as Hill looks to rebound from her recent loss to Yasmin Lucindo in August. Despite that setback, she has remained competitive, splitting her last 5 bouts with a 3-2 record. Known for her volume striking, grit, and ability to hang tough with virtually anyone in the weight class, Hill now finds herself paired with a hungry opponent who represents the next generation of talent. Fatima Kline, just 25 years old, will step into the cage with a 15-year age advantage over her opponent and plenty of momentum at her back. After stumbling in her UFC debut against Jasmine Jasudavicius, Kline has quickly righted the ship and reminded fans why she was a highly touted prospect before joining the promotion. She delivered a statement win in January by stopping Victoria Dudakova with a flurry of elbows from half guard in the second round, then followed it up in Dana White has made it clear who he's willing to bank on when it comes to the UFC's most ambitious event yet, the historic card on the White House lawn. Earlier this year, White and U.S. President Donald Trump announced plans for UFC White House, set to take place next summer as part of America's 250th birthday celebrations. Naturally, talk immediately turned to which fighters might headline a show of that magnitude, and both Conor McGregor and Jon Jones wasted little time voicing their interest. But while White sees McGregor as a reliable anchor, he's shutting the door on Jones. Speaking with Jim Rome, White explained that Jones's history of unpredictable setbacks makes him too much of a risk for such a high-stakes card. "He's not the guy that when crap hits the fan, he's not the guy like, whatever, I'll fight whoever," White said. "He's one of the guys I put on the list who has had some not-so-bright people around him that made decisions for him, and he listened to them at that time in his career. Fight fell out, the only fight we've ever canceled in the history of the company. That history looms large." Jones's failed drug test days before UFC 200 forced the cancellation of his rematch with Daniel Cormier. Later, his test results triggered a last-minute relocation of UFC 232 from Las Vegas to California. And perhaps most infamously, his refusal to face Chael Sonnen on short notice at UFC 151 after Dan Henderson withdrew led to the cancellation of the entire card, the only such instance in UFC history. For White, those incidents highlight why Jones isn't the kind of fighter he wants to gamble on for an event this historic. "I'm never worried about Jones not being clean for performance-enhancing drugs," White clarified. "My thing about Jon Jones is, in the crunch time, bad things always happen." Michael Venom, the British knockout specialist, famed for his karate-based striking, is taking his talents beyond the octagon as one of the founders of Total Combat, a brand new combat sports promotion set to debut this Saturday, September 13th, at London's O2 Arena. The event will be streamed in the United Kingdom on ITVX, which boasts over 40 million registered users, broadcast in the United States on beIN Sports, and made available for international audiences through Triller TV, which holds rights for other territories. Page, known for his flashy, high-impact style in MMA, has helped craft a full-contact, all-striking rule set specifically designed to produce highlight reel moments. He also contributed through his production company, In the Moment Productions, aiming to enhance the broadcast presentation and storytelling. I see a gap in the market for elite strikers to showcase their skills on television, Page explained. Total Combat will give martial artists the stage to build their profiles and offer fans the kind of moments I built my career on. This philosophy underscores the promotion's focus on technical striking and visual excitement rather than traditional MMA grappling exchanges. The debut card reflects Page's Olympic-style martial arts roots, featuring athletes from karate, taekwondo, and other striking disciplines. Among the highlighted matchups is UFC veteran Dean Barry, making the transition from mixed martial arts to Total Combat, where he will face undefeated karate champion Carlos Sanchez under the new striking-focused rule set. This blend of established professionals and rising martial arts stars is intended to create dynamic matchups that emphasize precision, speed, and knockout power. Veteran commentator Ben Bain will join Page to call the action, bringing his experience from major MMA and regional kickboxing broadcasts. Total Combat president Lee Matthews emphasized the importance of Davis's role in connecting with both hardcore and casual viewers. Ben's voice carries credibility across disciplines, Matthews said. His insights will help fans understand the technical nuances and stakes of each matchup.